Okay, why don't you come on up then? This is Jessica Clark.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm in the camera. Hi. Thank you for hosting this, having this, and giving both of us opportunities to introduce ourselves, get to know us, and why we are running for board. We have 4 daughters in the district. We have a 15-year-old, 14, 13, and 9. I say this all the time. We take donations and prayers because to have a house of girls is something interesting.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in St. Louis City, product of public school for most of my life. So that, we all know the state of St. Louis public schools. It can be very interesting. I got the privilege to go to Lutheran North for high school, which showed me the difference between, different types of education, a quality education where my teachers cared, they were invested. The students in the environment actually valued education versus going from an environment where nobody really cared. We showed up, the teacher showed up to get a check. The more bodies in the classroom, the more money that the state got. So it was a very different approach. So growing up in St. Louis City, my mother spent 17 years in prison. My father spent 10 years in prison. So I grew up with my great-grandparents, and their main job was to keep us alive. So they couldn't sit with us with homework. They couldn't check in on our grades. They couldn't put us in extracurricular activities. It was simply, they were, when I got there, I was 6 weeks, they were 67 and 77. So raising 3 kids under 5 was very interesting for them. So they did a good job. They did the best that they could. But sitting down and focusing on academics was never a top priority in our house. So as I grew up, I ended up being a teen mom at 17. Going on to welfare, I tell the story all the time. I remember my first experience in the welfare office. I sat next to a couple that were working on their master's degrees, and we had a great conversation. They just had a baby. They went in, got denied, which I didn't realize that's what happened. The lady came out crying, and I didn't understand what happened until 5 years later. I go back, I'm married, we put our daughters into a really nice Chinese school where they learn Mandarin. We're trying to focus on making sure that they have a different life than we had. We go back, because my ex-husband got cancer. We lost everything. We're trying to rebuild. We're like, okay, we're going to go back and get our degrees. This is a good time for that. They denied us services because we were married and there were 2 of us. So that's when I realized the system is a little flawed and it wasn't really set up to support family structure. And so I knew that it was up to me to make sure that my daughters had a different path, and that's on me. That's my job to make sure that they got a good education, to make sure that they had nice values, to make sure that they saw, there was plenty of opportunity for them. So coming into the Rockwood School District, of course, as my older daughters start ready for high school, we have to make sure the city didn't have any options. So Rockwood, of course, was a great choice. It had a great reputation, strong academics, and all of that. But then, when there was that email leaked about the district hiding things, of course, everybody's curious. What are you hiding? Why? Where's the transparency? We need to know. COVID gave us a unique opportunity to see what was actually going on in the classroom, and some of the things that we saw were unacceptable. Our kids are being over-sexualized. They're being exposed to ideas that don't represent the values of the community. We focused a lot on race and racism, and we've taken a sidestep to academics. The district's numbers have been dropping for the last 3 years. You look at the minority population, only 17% of the minority population in Rockwood are proficient in math. Only about 25% are proficient in English and reading. So while we're fighting about pronouns and we're fighting about history, we're fighting about, these kids can't even read the history you put in front of them. So, as a mother of Black children and a mother in a blended family, when you look at critical race theory, what kind of position does that put my family in? How do we sit at the dinner table and talk about these issues? Do I have my white daughters apologize to my Black daughters? Do I support a message that says, you can't get beyond anything in life because of the color of your skin? I don't think that our schools should be supporting a message like that. So, I spent last summer going around the state talking about the curriculum and what that looks like and how to identify critical race theory in the curriculum. And Rockwood, that's a part of the Rockwood culture, unfortunately. And I love Rockwood. I'm not anti-teacher, I'm not anti-district. I just see things that are implemented improperly, and we have to hold them accountable because the way it's being implemented now is hurting everybody. It's not empowering the minority population, and then it's taking away strong academics from all other populations. It's isolating our kids. They're divided. They don't have the language or the mental capacity to understand this high level of talking about race. And I'm not against talking about it. If it needs to be talked about, we can talk about it. But if you're going to talk about it, you need to have both sides of the spectrum. If you're going to have your staff read about anti-racism by Ibram Kendi, you need to put some Thomas Sowell in there where he sees race in a different perspective, where he sees discrimination and disparity in a different perspective. We can talk about it. It can't be an indoctrination to where there's only one side of the spectrum being talked about. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing in our district. Our teachers are coming in with this lens where everything has to be filtered through race. Everything has to be filtered through oppression and oppression, which is Marxism. You know, you realize that they couldn't divide our country by class because our middle class is too big. So strategically, we use something that a country has already struggled with, which was race. We've always had a race issue, but we've made a lot of progress. And instead of focusing on the progress that we've made, we focus on the wounds that we claim aren't healed. So for me, my message will always be we need to stick to academics. We need to go back to the basics. If we're struggling with educating our minority population, there are plenty of schools. When you look at Metro, which is one of the top schools in our state, most of their population is minority and not from middle class. These are low-income kids. What are they doing? Use that method. So everything needs to go back to creating a strong academic foundation, because that's the gateway to freedom. That's how you help these kids get a strong, ahead in life. That's how they compete in the world that we live in. So I'm always going to be for academics. I'm always going to be for having a balanced perspective. They can see all the information. If you give them that, then they can go back to their parents and talk about their family values and how they see race and how they see the world and how they see things. But when you only give them one side, we're not giving them a chance to be real critical thinkers, to have a solid foundation. So that's why I got involved. That is always going to be my fight. I am here for all Rockwood families, all Rockwood students, but we're exposing our kids to things that they can't handle, and it's confusing them, and they're not going to be ready for the world. So as a mother, I can't sit back and wait for things to kind of fix themselves. We have to be active participants. I'm just a mom. I'm winging it. I'm trying to figure out where I fit in and how to support the district and all the families. I want to be a bridge because of my background. I've been on both sides of the political spectrum. I was not conservative. I was very liberal. That was just what we did in my community. You vote Democrats, you vote a certain way. And so getting exposed, just being exposed to other sides, and it's like, oh man, like some of that really touches what I believe in. And so just giving them that. I want to be the bridge between the parents and the teachers, the parents and the administrators, and bring that transparency back, bring that communication back. So that'll always be my fight, and I'm here to answer any questions and support you guys in the best way that I can.
So what role does the school board itself play in, if you were to call Rockwood School District today and say, do you teach critical race? They're going to say no. I mean, that's what they will tell. That's what they've said. But we all know that within 1,000 pages of curriculum in Rockwood, there are efforts to bring in the theories that you just talked about regarding critical race. Where can the school board affect that? Do you know?
So I know that they review curriculum, they approve curriculum. So with the new superintendent, that's a relationship it's new. It's a new relationship. So sitting down with him and understanding his vision, the rumor mill is already going about his values and how, it's perfectly suited for the current culture of Rockwood. But, that's why I feel like I can be effective, because I am your minority population. And I know what I needed to hear when I was in school. It wasn't anything about my race. It wasn't about diversity. It wasn't about equity. It wasn't any of that. So trying to get him to understand, from somebody that actually gets it, who are you bringing in to create this curriculum? So that's the relationship that the board needs to harness with the superintendent, because, he makes those decisions and the administrators. We get to review it. We get to review it, and at this point, the way the board is structured now, nobody's going to point it out. Nobody's going to call it out. No offense, but you have a board full of white people that are afraid to say, this is racist, or this doesn't serve the community. Everybody's so afraid right now. That's what's hard. They sit back and they're just like, okay, I can't say it because the climate is so tense and so terrifying and so cutthroat. They say one thing that doesn't sound like it's in line with the NEA. They're getting threats. They're threatening their kids. They're trying to take their jobs. That's unfortunate. They're afraid.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they are really afraid.
Speaking of NEA, are you endorsed?
I am not. They'll never endorse me.
Okay.
They'll never endorse me. What I believe goes against everything that they talk about. My life story it destroys their whole narrative. They'll never endorse me. Yeah. Any more questions?
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.